All right. Hello. How is it going? I hope you're all doing well. I mean, you're probably not. Can't imagine why, though. I can't imagine why you might not be doing very good right now. Oh, what the hell? Look at this timing. Oh my god. Literally, Muskie literally like seconds into the stream. That's crazy. Yeah, election sure is fucking bad. Oh my god. Hi everybody, welcome to the stream. My name is Sean, welcome. You may be hearing Earthbound in the background. Hi, and before you join, sorry, election's bad. Sorry. That,
Good! That wasn't good!
Sorry it didn't work out. Boy howdy. Oops. Uh-oh. Thank you. I'm glad to have you, Muskie. It's been a while. Yeah, no, I don't know. I was gonna be on earlier, but something distracted me for some reason. It's so, I can't imagine what. But yeah, so the election's bad. I have my thoughts about it. You'll probably hear them over the course of the damn stream. If you know me, you won't be surprised by them. It's not gonna be an I told you so necessarily, because it does suck. It's not good. But I will say, you know, a lot of my concerns, for what it's worth, get mad at me for this, I did vote for Claudia De La Cruz. That said, I am in Washington, a solid blue, all or nothing state. So doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. I haven't checked the polls, but I'm almost certain Washington went Democrat, because that's never happened. Yeah, it's almost as though, like, hell, I'm gonna turn the Earthbound music down for a second. This is supposed to be, yeah, so, like, I voted for De La Cruz, and I don't know, I talked about, hold on. It's quieter on OBS than it is in my headphones. In my headphones, the game's still loud. But, yeah, so I voted for De La Cruz. But throughout this whole thing, I've been saying, like, hey, the usual communist thing of, you know, trying to win over Republicans is a bad idea. They already have Republicans.
Thanks for the money, you stupid bitch. You stupid bitch. Is hot. Damn, son. Would you find me?
That wasn't good. It was for the election, not for you subscribing to me. It's really good when people do that. Yeah, so it's just, again, they do all of the things, and the reason, you know, it is, here's how I guess my attempt to kind of make, if you were really, really invested in, you know, Kamala winning, which you probably were, I think most people didn't want, and I'm going to disagree with you. Because Trump, if you look at median voters that are on the fence about both candidates, first of all, it's a very tiny amount of people. It's like a 0.4% of voters or something. So you have this tiny voting block, and most of them are really dumb or like single issue voters, right? Anybody else who would have voted, like anytime they try to reach across the aisle, it's like, what? They already have Republicans. You can't out border patrol Trump. They already have a guy who will do it and is racist. That's a plus, right? They're not gonna, you know, nothing that they were gonna do. And as material conditions get worse, right? I'm gonna acknowledge my privilege right now. As material conditions get worse, there is a margin of people for whom liberal policies better. I'm not gonna be like, they're both the same. They're not. No, there's we're about to find out again, just how dramatically different it's gonna be that Trump is back. It's probably just going to be batshit insane. I have no clue what he's going to do, what's going to happen, other than nothing's going to be good. But, you know, it's not the same to say that they're exactly the same. But, you know, I have to inject some Marxist class interest stuff here. This is a weird talk to be having over the Earthbound screen. But, you know, I got to inject some classist thought. They are they're all, or some, gonna do some class analysis thing. They are materially bound to the same interests as Republicans. They have bound to maintaining their power, to maintaining the, bourgeois class or whatever. So at the end of the day, they can give concessions to make things a little bit easier. So yeah, you're right. Okay, they're not perfect. They're still going to be capitalists. But you don't understand is, that is so core to their beliefs that they will lose an election rather than concede to being against that. So it's not your fault. It is not anybody's fault but them, because those policies are different, but they are only different within a smaller and smaller margin of people for whom they're not just out of it. Like let me put it this way, okay? Let's look at Obamacare. Obamacare did some incredible things, namely, getting rid of the pre-existing condition stuff. Which, if you didn't know, if you're a fucking Zoomer and you're watching, before like 2008 or whenever Obamacare got through, they an insurance company could just not cover a brain tumor if they didn't want to, because they would be like, oh, that was a pre-existing condition or whatever. Like, it was like there was complete bullshit. They could just deny you healthcare over like, oh, you had that before you had insurance. That's not our responsibility. And that changed with Obamacare. However, let's say you got busted with weed, right? And you got a felony. And who the fuck doesn't smoke weed at this point? We kind of take that for granted. It's legal in a lot of places, but it's like still illegal. There's still people in jail serving time for weed charges, right? How is that gonna help you? You can't get a fucking job because you're a felon. You can't vote because you're a felon. What are you gonna do? How is like, oh, I'm getting like fucking tax bonuses or tax credits on this and that thing, or like your student loan can be aided by this and that. How is that gonna matter once you're homeless? How is that going to matter once you're so far gone from the system that you can't see it as harm reduction, because either one is a death sentence? And that is a margin that will grow. So if neoliberal strategy doesn't fail now, if it doesn't lose an election now, it will lose later, because those material conditions are going to be creating enough contradictions that no matter what they do, as long as it's within their allowed operating terms, which is still maintaining neoliberal capitalism, that's the only thing they can do. As long as they are doing within those terms, they cannot go outside of it. As long as they're operating within those terms, that margin is going to get bigger and bigger and bigger. So the point that I stress, revolutionary politics, that I stress community organizing, Marxist thought, getting out and working with communities. Hi, Clarion. I'm getting my election talk out of the way really quick before we get into the game. The reason I stress that isn't because I'm like, this privileged upper middle class, even though like I'm pretty, kind of broke on my own terms, but I have plenty of money from an inheritance right now that I've still just been sitting on. I'm going to acknowledge, like, I grew up poor, but I got, my mom married into a middle class family, and I've been middle class ever since when I was a teenager. So I do have things to fall back on. I'm very much within that margin of people who do benefit from liberal policies. But the reason I stress revolutionary stuff isn't catharsis to me, because it's not like, oh, let's just fuck the whole system, let's overthrow it. It's not that, like, the ContraPoints clip where they don't want power, they want to critique power. No, I want power. It's just that I recognize how much power we don't have. And it's not that it's cathartic, it's that it's necessary. It's not like, ooh, and of course I think it's good to fantasize about a revolution solving your fucking problems, because you have to have something to hope for. But realistically, I'm like, no, I know that I spent years and years and years. I'm 30 years old. I spent years and years and years doing the neoliberal politics thing, doing the like democratic socialist thing, doing the like, we just got to get into the system, do our part. It sucks, but you got to vote. You got to go, canvass. You got to go get these people in. You got to go protest peacefully. You got to do all of these things to get what gains we can and do incremental improvement, harm reduction. Incrementalism is no longer harm reduction, because the rate we're accelerating has outpaced how much any incremental gain will account for. We're going from a net loss of $2,000. Like, if it was money, we're going from a net loss of $2,000 a day to like $1,900 a day. And we're already way past bankrupt. All right. So the way that I see it is that it's like, it is a matter of seeing what's coming and learning to prepare yourself. We're not saying that because it's a get out of jail free card. It is a free, it is nice to kind of lift the responsibility off of yourself and be like, oh, I can't really control what's going on in and like electoral politics. It's kind of all bullshit. Yeah, there's some catharsis there. And in terms of like, I don't feel completely responsible, but that is only to get by with the monumental task ahead, which is preparing. And how much and how horrible that's going to be. I am not someone equipped for a revolution. I'm not someone who's equipped for community organizing. I'm a big fella, but I'm fucking weak. I'm disabled. It's not something that is likely for somebody like me to survive. And that might be a get out of jail free card of somebody who's had like such a long history of suicidal ideation. I don't want you to view it through that lens. And again, that's something I'm aware of. You can take that with a grain of salt, keep that in mind, but so am I. And I fucking hate confrontation, but we'll get into that. I'll do it, but it's not because I enjoy doing it or it comes naturally to me. It's because I feel an obligation to when it happens. But it's start reading Marx. I don't know. Start reading Marx, start reading Frantz Fanon, start reading James Baldwin, start reading Rosa Luxemburg, do your studying, meet with local, the only way out now, like liberals, if you're fucking scared and you're mad at third party voters or you're mad at, whatever, you have no idea where to go, bite the fucking bullet. I think a lot about my mom. I love my mom to death. We have a great relationship. We're very close. But she's a pretty diehard liberal, and she had a lot emotionally invested in this campaign, in this election. And, she's pro-Palestine and everything like that, but I fear has this pull that I recognize. It frustrates me talking to her about politics because I recognize something in myself, which is that she has committed her life and her well-being to understanding that, like, oh no, I fit in within this structure. Like, I have a place here. We can get it done. And I'm sorry to say that the structure is fundamentally built against you. And if you do want to make it, you have to sell your soul. And that is a horrifying, when you've emotionally committed to that and developed around that, that is a load-bearing pillar that I am asking you to remove, to destroy. I don't know what to say other than I'm glad it happened when I was younger, but it's happened to me like 4 times in my life. Over and over and over again, something happens that completely annihilates any worldview that could make me feel okay, that could make me feel like I fit in, that this is the right world for me. I have a place. I will be able to live a normal life. First, it was, being gay. I thought I would have a wife and kids and a family. I thought I would be a famous rock star by now. And I thought I would have all of this stuff and my life would be together. Being gay threw a wrench in all of that. It was going to college and failing and dropping out of college. It was going in and thinking like, okay, I'll survive high school. I won't kill myself in high school so I can get to college and then I'll figure it out from there. I got to college and my OCD got so bad I had to drop out and I only did a year and a half. So that failed. And then it was like, liberal politics at first failed in 2016, that I was like, what could we have done differently to like get Hillary in? Like, I wasn't a fan of Hillary, but I was like, I'll vote. I'll do the thing, obviously she's a better option. And then it was, the Bernie campaign in 2020, watching the, Democrats, like they're super meek and timid when it comes to Republicans, but the moment something is approaching from the left, they can hit it head on. And they can play all the dirty tricks that they've acted like they're not capable of. They can do all of that. They can do real politics if it means stopping milquetoast fucking Bernie Sanders, right? And so that annihilated it for me. And then the 2020 protests happened, and seeing all the like woke, progressive, liberal Democrat mayors tear gassing my friends and brutalizing, and it goes so much further than tear gassing. It was They tried to, it is amazing looking back, being somebody who actually remembers what was happening just in Seattle in 2020, that more people didn't die because they tried to kill us on so many occasions. There was at one point, you could probably still find videos of this. There's a famous thing where there was like a bunch of protesters on a street in Seattle, and a police car, or not a police car, sorry, we'll get there. I said police for a reason, but a car drives into the crowd of protesters. Now, earlier that day, I was in communications. I was at work that day. I was in communications with some medics that were on the ground and doing some protesting stuff. And this is something I've never talked about on stream because I don't like talking about the 2020 protests. I feel like that is being incriminated is a genuine concern. And I just don't want people to try to question, be like, are your sources? Is that what the news says? And it's like, everything you have read about what happened in Seattle in 2020 is wrong. First of all, period. If you weren't there, you don't know what happened. But so that morning, before that car came in and hit and tried to run over this, and which, by the way, they did later run over and kill 2 protesters. Or no, they killed, what was their name? It was Summer something, I don't remember. And then the other protester survived, was disabled from it, I think. What was their name? It was Summer something. I'm sorry, I'm forgetting their name. But so this car drives into this crowd of people, and luckily they saw it coming, they managed to get out of the way, and it was kind of like a bunch of people got hit, but there was only like minor injuries. So earlier that day, when they were still cooperating, this is when they were still cooperating with the SPD, there was a barricade set up by the SPD. And when the protesters arrived, a lot of the protest organizers looked at the way the barrier was constructed and said, hey, this isn't safe. This isn't set up correctly. People are gonna get corralled. You're corralling people into here and they're gonna be pressed up against this. This could cause like a crowd crush situation. This could be, these are going to collapse. These are not built correctly. And so the police held the line. Eventually the protesters just said, fuck it, and destroyed them and just took the barriers down. The person that drove where they would have hit those barriers. That person, their brother-in-law, it wasn't the chief of police. That's Carmen Best at the time. But it was like their brother-in-law was like a high up in the police force. And it's like, there's no way you didn't know what was going on. So it's like you had contact. Same with like when the other 2 protesters got hit on the freeway protest, that section of I-5 was closed off. Somebody had to have allowed that car on. So police were guarding every on and off ramp, making sure nobody was getting onto that I-5. And yet somehow somebody managed to get by to run over protesters. This is just the beginning of it. And it's like all of the sweeps that were happening at the time, they're just going through and like beating homeless people until they leave and destroying everything they own. So that was like where Chop, if you see any pictures of Chop at the time or Chaz, then that you saw the tents everywhere. That was because they were giving like homeless people a chance to like not be beaten up. But they were tear gassing neighborhoods indiscriminately. They were, doing this like I know people who are now capable of being charged with a felony for scrubbing tear gas out of children's eyes in a Democrat city with a lesbian mayor with a black female chief of police. And that is the city that felonized and demonized them and brutalized them for medically aiding children at a peaceful protest. There were non-peaceful protests, and I support them. Because those are the only ones that get anything done. Another thing about CHOP, people don't know this, but unless you were there and unless you were talking to community organizers, this narrative as it went was that a bunch of Seattle anarchists overthrew the Seattle police headquarters and set up CHOP. So that was either the day after or 2 days after the Minneapolis Police Department was set on fire. And should I turn off the Earthbound music? I have my headphones on, so I forgot it's still the fucking Earthbound thing playing, and I'm turning it off. Hold on. We're gonna... I'm sorry. Okay. But, so, when they arrived that day to just do the regular protests, no police showed up. And they were like, what's going on? So they came to the police headquarters. They found it unlocked, with all the windows boarded up and everything closed off. Leave it on? All right. And all of the But all of the windows were boarded up, the doors were boarded, everything was closed off, and it was just abandoned and empty and unlocked, so they could get in. And they said this was like the day before Minneapolis burnt down their police department. They are waiting for us to burn this police department down, so nobody go in. None of the organizers allowed any protesters to enter the police building. So that was when they were like, all right, well, if police are gone, we're gonna show them how we can handle it without them. Because they're trying to do one of two things. One, either see what's going on. Yeah, either see like, oh yeah, you think you're gonna be fine without police there? Let's see how it goes, and then try to sabotage it, which is what they did. Or we try to burn down the police department, and then they can go in and just brutalize us. So yeah, no one overran the SPD. Nobody ran the SPD out of town. They were gone, and so they set up camps and places for homeless people to donate to them, to help treat them for how they had been because the sweeps were occurring. That was another thing, it wasn't just BLM, it was stop the sweeps. And the sweeps were really bad that summer. So, it was like, hey, come back. We've got as much stuff as we can. We're setting up donation and education stations. And they were like, all right, well, we're going to just keep the police out of here. And there were some people offering armed security. A lot of them turned out to be ops. A lot of them turned out to have ties to the police. Shocker. So, and it's like, oh yeah, they fucking look at how they fucked that up. And also, first of all, one of the people that started it was a Maoist. And not an anarchist, so they want to blame like, oh, the stupid fucking anarchities fucked up Seattle. Because even some leftists, like I think Chapo Trap House was like ripping, and I love Chapo, but it's critical support for Chapo Trap House. They have some blind spots. That's one of them. And like even on the left, people were ripping into Chop and were being like, oh, fucking, that's embarrassing. It's just the fucking Seattle yuppie anarchists who don't know what they're doing or whatever. And like there was some stupid shit that went on because it was very suddenly thrust. The situation wasn't something that they had planned and prepared for. It wasn't like a planned operation that they went into knowing how it was going to go. So that's like a basic rundown of like, just a couple examples of how everything, even from the reputable sources, is incorrect. And I could have spoken out at the time, but people were getting disappeared. Like people in that medic group were like having vans pulling up outside of their houses, and people were getting arrested for unrelated charges without any, explanation, and just like getting held indefinitely. So it was like, I didn't want to out anybody. I didn't want to talk about it. I didn't want. And I was severely traumatized because it was like, even then I was still on board with the whole like, oh, well, we've got good people in there, there's a couple Hillary Clintons or, like fucking Joe Manchins that are just dog shit awful, but they're still like, the Democratic Party are still the better party. They're still pro BLM. They're not gonna, whatever. And then it was then when I was like, no, they're gonna go to any lengths they can to stop us without outright slaughtering us. And then say, well, we agree. We just want you to be more peaceful. But then if it's peaceful, you can be ignored. So that was one of the main reasons all the way throughout, even if some completely unrelated, horribly traumatic shit happened to me towards the end of 2020. Even if it wasn't for any of that, that traumatized me on a level that was really deep, and I just kind of sunk into this depression that I still haven't fully recovered from. I'm getting better. I'm getting a lot better. But it's taking down a load-bearing pillar of your belief system is fucking horrifying and exhausting and traumatizing. Which is why, people try to push. And the reason why so many leftists get impatient with it is because we've already done that. Or, yeah, I'm sure there's some of them who are just like, they've never had to, of course there's going to be people who are like never had to struggle. And so it's all just like a fucking, disagreeing with a Marvel movie, like not liking Marvel movies or something to them. They're just like, oh, I'm different. I don't like mainstream normie politics. Of course people like that exist. I think they're a tiny, way overrepresented minority because it's very convenient to paint any Marxist as that. Or any anarchist or any, whatever. But it is a terrifying, traumatizing process, and And people get exhausted because it's like either they've had to go through it already, and it's like you have to continue to empathize, you have to re-put yourself in that position. And it's like, I can't go back. I can't go back and still convince myself to believe in them enough to even empathize with where you're at. And, or they're people who are so far, again, outside of the range that they've never benefited from it, and they're just wholly against it. There's interesting people to talk to about politics that will be very enlightening. And this is more by proxy. My brother works with a lot of, and has worked with a lot of these people, but former gangbangers. Talk to a former gangbanger and they will tell you, like, oh, politics is all just gang shit. It's just gang shit. And then the mechanics of it start making more sense. It's like, why would that person rather Trump win when, you know, they're black? Obviously, this racist person is going to be against their interests. And it's like, well, because they know someone who, I'm not going to call Trump honest, but he is closer to a simulacra of honest. He is so unpredictable that he has the appearance of something that more closely resembles honesty than anything the Democrats do, when the Democrats are like, hey, we'll wear the kente cloth. We're going to name the street after fucking whoever got killed by police brutality, but we're still going to fund Cop City. In fact, we're going to do a much better job of funding Cop City. So what I'm saying is, I don't know if that's your, he has a concept of shaking things up in a way that an honest person would. I think he knows, and probably because he knows reality TV, but he knows he is a genuine shock to the system. They actually don't fuck with him. The system does not like Trump because he fucking gives their game away. He doesn't play ball. But he doesn't because of his own stupid interests. It's not any honesty or merit on his part, obviously. But he goes in and he fucks with what you're supposed to do as a politician enough that it comes across as something, again, closer to what an honest person would do. It's not honest. And I don't think he even thinks about trying to sell honesty. He just thinks about being like a fucking troll. You know, I think he just thinks about swaying the crowd. It's not even reality TV. It's like kayfabe. Because again, he's really, you know, he's close with Vince McMahon. He also has done wrestling. He loves pro wrestling. But yeah, it's he knows how to work that. And so I don't know. What I'm saying is, what I have been trying to communicate isn't that I want the Dems to lose because I'm petty and I won't be affected by any of this. And there's a lot that I won't be. But, well, I mean, I will, because I'm still, you know, I'm disabled, which, by the way, when it comes to disability, there is no difference. Like, nothing they are doing is anything. It is at best with Democrats, things actively won't get worse, but no improvement. There is no such thing as any incremental gain when it comes to disability. I'm autistic, and it does significantly. I might not be classified as, you know, like DDA disabled, but, you know, it affects my life significantly. But I also work in the field of disability. I'm a support worker, so I am seeing how these policies affect people with disabilities every day, and nothing makes a difference. Nothing has helped them. There has been nothing that has come their way since Trump left office. The only thing that changed under Trump was one of my clients was getting food stamps for $78 a month. And we got a letter from the Trump administration saying, as of, you know, so-and-so policy, your unearned income benefits, unearned income really stuck out to me as petty. This was an intellectually disabled man in advanced stages of dementia, for the record, had dropped from $78 a month to $72 a month. That was what he was getting in food stamps. That's the only difference I've seen. Yeah, it's just, you know, what I'm saying is don't fall for it next time. If next time it comes around and you still want to vote for Democrats for harm reduction, do it. But don't Trying to funnel everything into that system is a losing strategy. The system is built to destroy you. The system is built to annihilate any resistance. You will not succeed. It is a fool's errand. I'm not going to be like, oh, AOC is a grifter. The squad are just grifter sellouts who are just opportunists and want you to... No. But I will say, I think they're useful idiots. I think sometimes if you're not going far enough to encourage organization outside of the system in ways that systems do not like, and they have to be ways, that's the only way you're going to know that they could work, is if they really don't like you doing it. So yeah, you're going to have to fucking shake shit up. Protests have to get violent. You have to organize, you have to set up, you have to get to know your community. You need to, I don't know. And it's like, and there's, I'm not, you know, there's the obvious issue of like, you know, but then we'll have to be nice with like bigots or like, you know, a lot of your community members are these people who are going to sell you out to fascists and all that stuff. I don't have the answers for that. I haven't done that kind of reading and I don't have that kind of experience because I'm a fucking loser. I don't really do much. I'm not like, I'm not going to be one of those anti-electoral to the point of like, don't vote, it's a waste of time. And it's like, well, it would be like, if you're like a community organizer, then I don't give a shit if you vote. If you're doing the actual groundwork, then you've probably learned the hard way of like whether or not your vote counts. But it's like, I'm not doing the bare minimum, so I might as well be closer to the bare minimum by voting. But just, yeah, you have to prepare outside of it. And that was kind of the thing we've been trying to say the whole time. Sure, there's going to be people that are like, I actually look down on you. And it's like, you can't blame them. Like, I actually look down on you for voting for Kamala Harris or voting for the Democrats after what they've done. And some of those people might just be condescending pricks, but a lot of them are saying that because their fucking nieces and nephews are being tortured to death and burned alive in Palestine right fucking now. They're people who have had family murdered by police, who haven't had a single ounce of help. There are people that have slipped through the cracks of the system, and those cracks are getting bigger, and more people aren't fitting through them. Trump didn't win by swinging the median voter. He won because he reached outside of the cracks. Even if it was a lie, he pulled in people who weren't gonna vote anyway. That is always, and they know this. They know the voting block of people who are actual swing undecided voters. They know that it's bullshit. They would rather lose. I thought for a second, maybe with the Republicans are weird thing and picking Tim Walz, listening to that feedback for a moment. I thought for about a week, I was like, oh, maybe they aren't controlled opposition. No, they waited until the moment they thought they had us, and then they went right back to like, all right, we got to have a strong Republican Party. Yeah, and it's like, you already do have a strong Republican Party. Yeah, they're a train wreck because they all fucking hate each other and they're a mess interpersonally, but they have the strongest structural power of anybody in this fucking country. It is so stupid to think anything out less. They have the fucking Supreme Court. Okay? We have a strong Republican Party. What we need is a strong opposition, and the opposition is socialism, and they won't do that. So it's controlled opposition at best. This was bound to happen. If it wasn't going to happen here, it will happen in the next election. So I'm just begging. If you're like, that seems hopeless, do some reading. Like, look outside. Listen to the fucking communists you're scared of. Listen to the people that you've always been like, oh, but their worldview threatens my ability to have a normal life. I know. And that fucking sucks. But most of us won't ever get to live a normal life either. We're already past that point. It's like a friend of mine was mentioning something like, you know, I'm still going to encourage voting. It's like the eating healthy and exercising of politics. And it was that fucking Tumblr post or whatnot. And I'm like, are you serious? Are we really? Because I'm like, I get it from a certain perspective. Because again, you could slow the progress down. But what I'm telling you is that the ways that are meaningful that we're losing progress, that we're going backwards, that we're falling into fascism, none of this the fallacy of incrementalism is that it assumes that things are static until you input good policy. that you can slowly add in the good and it will build up and it will snowball and eventually you will get to at least a better place. The fallacy there is that we're not static. We're tumbling downwards. We are catastrophically falling into fascism. We're already there. We've been there since 2000. Since they fucking stole that election and no one did a fucking thing. That incrementalism is not going to be able to keep up. And even if it does help in some ways, it not being able to keep up means more people are going to slip through the cracks and more people are going to be like, that is nothing to me. I will still die. Not have a worse time, die. Democrats and Republicans are a death sentence to a growing number of people. It doesn't matter if AOC is there to tell them to fucking knock it off. Gavin Newsom was personally brutalizing homeless people and sweeping fucking California like 2 months ago. That's a Democrat. You can't little incrementalize your way out of giving those people their lives back because those are gone permanently. Every time a homeless encampment gets swept, those are entire lives destroyed again. That it's not good enough, so I'm just not going to do anything. It's not good enough in the sense that it's almost a waste of time. It's not quite, but it's almost. And for a lot of people, it is. And so all I can say is it's time to look outside of the system. Another thing, I haven't read it, but I see it recommended all the time, and I just the title alone is enough to, give me my sentiment. I think that alone says it is let this radicalize you. There is no center. There is no normal, respectable liberal politics. It was always going to fall apart. That's what Marx talked about more than anything. It's that you have two options. It's going to fall apart into fascism or it's going to fall apart into socialism. So start building socialism. It's not like, oh, I prefer that, so that's the only thing I'm going to work towards or try to make acceptable. No, it's that those are the two options based off of the way these power structures are set up. And we fucking rat-fucked the socialist. So it's time to talk to the socialists because at the very least, there is groundwork that exists that will help you build communities, that will help you do mutual aid, that will help you, even if it's like getting through to people, you can at least introduce them. You can get to them with like class interest. People, I know class reductionism is annoying and problematic, but it still is like, if you're gonna get people on your side, like you're at least gonna have a better shot if you can still get them to understand that it's not left versus right, it's rich versus poor, and not even rich versus poor, it's own versus don't own. It's own the means of production or don't. And that's where we have to go from here. And a lot of people thought it was a lost cause. From what I understand, I don't know if the election has been called officially yet, but from what I'm gathering from the polls that I've seen, the third party vote, everyone who voted for Jill Stein and De La Cruz could have both voted for Kamala Harris and she still wouldn't have won. So you can get mad at them. You can get mad at whatever, but I'm telling you, the reason they have done it is because they saw this coming and they knew their vote wasn't going to be enough. Even if they didn't already fucking despise Kamala Harris because of her history. She has a terrible track record. Horrible. And like a lot of people, yeah, they're going to be rightfully spurned, but they also just know that it is inevitable because even if it's wrong, even if it's factually correct to always vote lesser evil, we are dumb animals. Put yourself into a position of fight or flight and trauma and try to act rationally. Now, poverty is trauma. Homelessness is one of the most traumatizing things a human being can experience. It is one of the most violent institutions that we have, and it is an institution. Criminalizing. Think about something. When I talk about the violence of poverty that people don't understand, they don't wrap their heads around of how violent it is. I want you to think about like homelessness versus exile. Imagine you were just cast out into the woods and you couldn't come back to society. You could forage. You could forage honestly, even if it somehow swings back to Harris, this all still applies. You could find a place to shit. You could shit in you wouldn't be safe, but you could find other things. You could make do with what you have got. No one's coming to take that away. Maybe animals, but you can do something. You can sleep. You can find a nook to sleep in. In a city, you can't do that. You can't lay down. Somebody is there to make sure you don't have access to dispose of waste. They're going to make sure you don't go out of their way to deprive you. Like, homelessness is a process of actively depriving and reinforcing it. They deprive them of places to bathe, of places to clean, of restrooms, of anything. And you have to go out of your way to create those conditions. It would be easier to just have a fucking place that they could go fucking shit or whatever and not worry about it. But we actively go out of our way to criminalize it. Just think about that. How do you sleep? You can't. You sleep on a bench, you'll get fucking waken up and made to move. And also, you're in fucking, like, exposed to the temperatures, like exposed to the elements. You're never gonna get sleep, so you're sleep deprived. You're always gonna be fucking on the edge. And just being sleep deprived for long enough will make you traumatized. Even if it's factually, mathematically, if you just reduce it all to calculus and be like, Kamala Harris is blowing up this many Palestinians. Trump is going to blow up this many Palestinians and more. That doesn't matter, because once you have fallen far enough below a certain line, you can't even think rationally if you wanted to. And people still manage. But they shouldn't have to, and they don't owe it to you. They only owe themselves surviving, maybe. That's it. And that is going to happen. And it's easier to get mad at people doing something wrong than to recognize that everyone in power is against you. It's easier to just be like, oh, if people just hadn't voted Stein, if people just were less racist, it's easier to accept that than the monumental task of realizing this whole system is bad. That's not us just saying bad things happen under. It's like, no, because this was what was always going to happen. But you gotta rip off that band-aid. And it's gonna be tough. You're gonna have to rethink how you understand yourself, how you identify, like what you're okay with as a person. It's not a coincidence so many communists immediately like come out as trans, because it's like, that is one of those things where it shakes up your understanding of how things are so much that you have to just start from scratch. And once you do, it's like, why am I a man? Like, like, why am I fucking bothering? And then it's fucking hard and it's scary, and you never have a like, I am safe, I am okay moment again, but you already don't. That is neurotoxin. That is an anesthetic allowing the poison to work more effectively. I'm sorry that it's load bearing, but it was load bearing for me too, and I'm still alive. I haven't killed myself. And like every fucking day, that's an accomplishment. So I don't know. I guess that's what I have to say about it. Honestly, I might upload this VOD separate. I might stop the recording here, and I might just like remove the Earthbound music or leave it. I don't know. Because again, I'm not hearing it. I'm just talking. But it sounds scarier to give up on electoralism when you don't know that there are options. And the reason communists reach out to you, and it's like, oh, let's talk about, like, if communism is scary because like Soviet Union bad, Stalin bad, whatever. Again, when that much of the system is designed to like, first of all, we could get into that. We could get into, talk about dialectical materialism, talk about how those things happen. But first and foremost, I want you to understand, like, let's talk about the main bad things Stalin did. I am not that much of like a Stalin apologist or anything, but like let's just get into, I'm gonna just address the elephant in the room really quick here. Oh, Stalin, bad guy, totalitarian, starved 1.2 million people, right? Okay, so let's say he starved 1.2 million people. Oh man, it's not like Winston Churchill would have done a thing like that or anything. famously. You know, it's not like, it's like, okay, well, we're doing all of those things. And then also, like, Churchill it would just be like firebombing nations around the Soviet Union just to fuck with them, just to intimidate them. Like, it speaks to me, like, no matter what horror, like, even the scariest, most unappealing communist, the most authoritarian communist, anything scary you hear out of, like, North Korea or Russia, like, I put it in the context of, like, I think you really need to look into how many atrocities we are committing on a constant basis and have never slowed or stopped. Because it's not just Palestine. You know, look up the School of the Americas. Look up just the things that the CIA has declassified. Look at all of these things. Like, understand that, like, people, if they're, like, so far gone that they're like, oh, Stalin was based, think about why that might be. Like, that they're like, how far gone that a lot of these, because it's not just like edgy people on the internet, it would also be like black revolutionaries in the 60s. Why would they be so far gone that somebody who did these horrible things or whatever, and some of them they did, like, maybe that is a narrative, like, think about, first of all, question it, and if it did happen, still, like, think about in context of American imperialism. I don't know. If that's your hang up with, like, talking to communists specifically, I mean, sure. But just question it and think about it in terms of, like, even if it feels like selling your soul, it's like, again, nothing that they could describe to you that this other person did even holds a candle to what we're doing on a constant basis, to the violence that it requires to sustain our, like, economy and import of goods. Like, so at the very least, you still believe in the lesser of two evils? That is something I can certainly say. I'm like, I'm not a big fan of China. They're absolutely the lesser of two evils compared to America. Period. Like, you can make a case for Russia, but even then, it's like, look at their means and resources. And also, hey, whose fault is that? Who is responsible for Putin? Because guess who we fucking supported? So, like, again, I want you to think about that. And I don't know, that's just if you're super scared. But the reason I'm stressing communists and maybe anarchists too, I'm becoming less and less of an anarchist as time goes on. But it's because they are the ones with the closest thing to a solution. There's a reason they talk about, like, you know, they romanticize the Soviet Revolution because they did it. And they weren't just coming from capitalism. They were coming from feudalism, which is worse. So, like, think about everything you're going to lose. Think about all your rights and think about all of that. And, you know, put that on the people in charge. Like, put that on them and think about it. Like, I don't know. It's just, your best chances are if you have, like, a more socialist economy, even if the rest of it is unethical. That's how it's like, people are like, how could a trans person support? Yeah, I think I've got problems with anarchists, but I'm not like, anarchists get the bullet. I hate that shit. No, I'm absolutely pro-left unity, and I don't like people that are like, oh, pick one. You're ideologically incoherent or a grifter if you just call yourself a leftist. No, it's like, I'm willing to bend to what seems like it is most practical and useful in the moment. But yeah, like, I think the people who are like the Marxist Leninists and whatnot, so far, just looking at it, they have the highest success rate. Because, like, again, it's like, it's scary to think of, like, needing a big army and needing to fight a war, but you're not going to get out without it. Like, in that, again, the implication, I'm not romanticizing that. I'm terrified. You think I'm fit for that? No. It's, I want you to, part of the reason I get so mad at liberals and I push so hard to get them to, like, shake this out of them is that it's like, a part of me also is just like, I wish I could go through this with my mom there to support me. I wish I could go there with all of these people I grew up with, and they would be there to be like, hey, we can do this. Because until then, I'm kind of doing it alone, and that's fucking frustrating. It's exhausting, and it is scary, and the more of us that are on board with it, the easier it will be just to be able to stomach it. Just to be able to... Well, that's not leftist, and I think, and I used to be very like, oh, that's their fed, you know, calling them feds is fucking stupid. And it's like, well, it doesn't matter. They're functionally feds. Like, fuck Vosh. This is not, no, fucking, I hate that guy. I hate that man. Jesus Christ. But it's like, yeah, no, if it's fucking scary, then seek out people that will help you get through it. And they're gonna be people who are already communists. And as insufferable and annoying as Marxists are, and they are, you are not wrong. Like, we hate each other too sometimes. If they know you are trying and you are actively like, okay, we have to do this, they will help you. They will be patient. They will, you know, there will be people. And even then, I've just met so many people that are willing to, you know, not be annoying Twitter leftists and actually help you learn and help you get resources and help you deal with it. So that's one of the reasons I haven't really gone to like therapy much, since like I should, you know, because I know I've got some form of complex PTSD at this point. Like, how could you fucking not? Everyone in the fucking planet has some from COVID. But the reason I haven't is just because I'm like, first of all, I'd have to make sure that they're like at least a socialist, like revolutionary socialist, not a reformist, a revolutionary, you know, because what else can they do for me? You know, like what else are you going to tell me that is going to make me going to work more tolerable? And I have an easy as fuck job. I'm sorry, like I'm the thing about being a graveyard shift worker is I show up, I fucking, my clients might be awake when I get there. I talk, I help them get to bed. And then I like do basically clean the house, which is easy as fuck because we do it every day and it's a house. So I get the floors done and the counters and all that stuff done in like 30 or so minutes. And I fuck around for a while. And then they wake up. And then I have to help a couple people get ready in the morning. That's about it. So even for me, it is like exhausting, and that is an easy as fuck job. And when it gets hard, it gets really fucking hard. So that's the trade-off with this kind of field of work, is that like a lot of people are like, oh, that sounds pretty easy. And then you get into it and then you see somebody have a seizure and you fucking clam up and you have no idea what to do. And it gets real fucking scary and real vulnerable and real intimate real fast. So, you know, I get it. And also just having to kind of open yourself up to understanding people with experiences far outside of your own is just hard in general. Even harder when you work in neurodivergency and intellectual disabilities. And I could go on and on and on and talk about the flaws with my field, but yeah, I don't know. I hope any of this resonates. I haven't, like, you know, obviously this is all off the top of my head, and this isn't something I normally do like this, and I just, hopefully that was coherent enough and understand why, yeah, Trump winning probably fucking sucks, but like, I accepted that and have been kind of like emotionally preparing myself for that since he already won in 2016. You know, I don't want to be blindsided again. So my idea isn't to like hope for these politicians who are going to fail me, which it was up until 2020. Until 2020, it shattered. And then what fucking tiny pieces were left were utterly decimated by October 7th of last year. So, just, yeah, it's going to be fucking hard. And I'm not going to say you'll be okay. I'm not going to say we're going to make it. I can't promise that, but there is a path forward. And some of us will. Like, some of us will make it, I think. Because again, and another one is like the harm reduction shit. It's like, okay, yeah, no, Green New Deal has zero chance under Trump, but like, what chance does it have under Democrats? And also, that's also like a half measure when we're talking about the end of sustainability of life on Earth. We don't have time for incremental change. Like, that's another thing. Like, we're on a time limit. It's not that I'm not patient. I would deal with the fucking mundane, shitty life. That's what I was expecting for most of my life, was that it was just gonna be mundane and kind of shitty, but I'd find a way to get by. I have the time, the planet doesn't. We need to do something radical and fast, because people are already dying in droves, and it's only gonna get worse. So yeah, this is why, you know, I don't want to try to just at least address the idea of like, voting third party or people saying voting's a waste of time. Like, at least try to get a point where you can understand why that is and why people would come to that, and maybe it could help you. Because, yeah. And also, people, the argument, this is a petty thing, I'm sorry, but like, people always talk about that, like, oh, your options are Hitler and not Hitler, or like Hitler and 99% Hitler, vote in not Hitler, and it's like, or like, like, you want Hitler, you would have been there to let Hitler happen, and then you would have been like, oh, I told you so when Hitler got elected, and it's like, Hitler never got elected. You know who did get elected? The Social Democrats, which for the record is further to the left than anyone in Senate right now, anyone in Congress right now. That's like AOC, the AOCs. She describes herself as a Social Democrat. The Social Democrat Party in Germany, in Weimar, Germany, won the election and then went to the far right, the fascists, and said, hey, you guys take out the fucking communists for us, right? And then we both have that, and then we can work together. And they were like, thanks, sure. And so then they worked together to destroy the Communist Party. And then once the communists were out of the way, first they came for the communists, then they just fucking stabbed them. Which makes this even more embarrassing, because we're gonna be the country that elected Hitler. But whose fucking fault is that? And I want you to think like, oh, it is more... It sounds hopeless to the outside, to the average liberal person, which is most people in America. I think most normal people are just kind of your run-of-the-mill, not actively political liberal who has a normal life. It sounds way more pessimistic to be like, no, all of these people are against us. But when you don't do that, it is way more bleak to think that, like, no, that many people are that committed to making sure the planet dies and are dumb enough. And it's like, and it's true. A lot of people. I am not planning to win over many Trump supporters in the coming years. I am not planning to reach out an olive branch. I will leave that to people who won't start screaming immediately, like to people who can handle it. But it still is, it's easier to see what we do have in common and why they end up there than it is to be like, actually, no, it's all of these millions of people who didn't vote that are bad. It's all of these people that are suffering so much that are, unfortunately, they're suffering, but they're so stupid and evil that they didn't stop Hitler. Which one sounds more cynical? So if you want to be more optimistic, talk to some communists, talk to some socialists, talk to some, and not fucking Germany's socialism, not fucking Swedish model fucking socialism, because that's all, there's a reason they kind of like, that's not real socialism. No, the scary ones. Because they're scary because they know the stakes they're up against and they know they have to be scary. So, with that, well, fuck. Might as well stop the recording then. Because that is an hour. I didn't expect that to go on for an hour, but I guess, shocker, there's a lot to say about an election. Who would have guessed? Anyway, yeah, so this is going to be a separate VOD on YouTube. Let me know if you guys, maybe I'll just upload it with and without the Earthbound music. I don't know, that's just so silly that that's there the whole time and I can't see it. It's going to be bizarre as fuck, but I'm going to upload that as a separate VOD. And let's go ahead and call that good for now. Let's talk about some Earthbound, and later we might smash some cars, because I Halloween's over, so I can go back to BeamNG.drive, and also got the Vulkan renderer working, which means we're not going to have any performance issues, or at least not as many as we had last time, which weren't that many. So, it's going to be even better. So we can just smash the fuck out of some cars. I can just find new ways to annihilate a Cybertruck, and then oh yeah. Europe and China, and I'm really traumatized by your experience growing up. I can't believe in state authoritarianism. The reason they self-proclaim to be socialist is because they need to keep up the name. It's historical legitimacy saying even though China is capitalist and imperialist as fuck, I absolutely hate the authoritarian regimes that misappropriated socialist movement. So yeah, that's fair. Like I said, I'm not like a pro-China person at all. I would like people to understand how China got to be the way that it is. Because it's like, no, I don't want to be in China either. Because like I know it's fucking anti-LGBTQ as fuck, and but it's, and again, it's like, how could they be the socialist revolution where it's like, no, there's a reason we go to them for cheap outsourced labor, So it's like, yeah, no, I'm not going to be like pro China. I'm not going to, you know, I would like to do more, education on a lot of, you know, like the Soviet Union collapse and how things got bad. And because people have like very legitimate beef with like Marxist Leninists, especially like, you know, Ukrainian anarchists. They were the only people that were correct about how the fucking Russian invasion was going to go. Like, yeah, I mean, the US State Department was too, but nobody thought like Russia was going to do it because it'd be so fucking stupid and insane. But also Putin is very stupid and insane. So of course he did do it. But it's like, you know, when you get into the dialectics of it, it's like, oh, okay, I see how the two opposing forces, that's like a whole conversation of dialectical materialism. I will say this, it seems like China, from what I understand, even if they're evil as fuck, which I think they are functionally better at what they do than we are. We're evil and incompetent. Whereas like, I don't know, they seem to be, you know, do horrible shit and then also be able to like, oh, fuck, at least dial back, you know, environmental stuff. I think they've really reduced their carbon emissions and shit. And a lot of those too, you have to consider, with China, it's like they have less of an excuse because again, they are a very heavy imperial core. Like they have an imperial base, they have the resources and means, but you have to look at places like, you know, a lot of other places where it becomes this like hellhole or whatever. And it's like, well, look at the sanctions. Like, how would Cuba be doing if it weren't for us brutally fucking sanctioning them? China doesn't have to worry about that. And also China is like pro-Israel and shit. Like, you know, I feel like a lot of people are they're looking for a more, I might think they're a lesser evil in the grand scheme of things, but I don't want to diminish the fucking awful shit that China does at all. And I don't even think Putin is necessarily a lesser evil. Maybe at the very least an evil with less resources, but more evil. Like, and that's just because I know people who live in Russia and have to deal with his ass. Like, they don't want to do any of this shit either. And being fucking queer in Russia is fucking horrifying. Yeah, no, like look at Cuba. And so they still manage to have fucking better healthcare than us in spite of what we do. Like, we're starving that population and they're still managing to get by. So I don't know. But what I think about, because at least in theory, in the abstract, China says they're coming at it from a materialist perspective, that alone sets them ahead of us in terms of competency, because at the very least, even if they're doing it wrong or misappropriating it, they're still coming at it from a framework of like, what are the conditions we're in? Where can we get them to what we want them to be? Whereas in America, it's very like idealist in the like bad way. Like in the well, this is what's right, and it's much more divine right of kings, I guess. Like, it's, yeah, I don't know. And it's also hard to say like, oh, we have a two-party system, but we get to choose it every 4 years. I was just in a group chat that was that's a good one. That is a good one. I'm in a group chat that somebody was like, well, the beautiful thing is we get to choose every 4 years. And it's like, yeah, we get to choose between one and one barely less shitty, if at all. And even then they're going to be really fucking difficult. And other people get to choose between so many more. Like, and also it's like, okay, any third party shit too. It's like, I don't know if we could get into that. I think that's for another time. But yeah, I think we're good. I think we're ready to play Earthbound. So that's the stream. I don't know. I need to do more reading. And one of the reasons in being critical of China, it's not that it's not worth being critical of. It's just that in the imperial core that is America, it's like we are trying to drum up war with China, and that's not good. I don't think that's the solution. I'm generally anti-war. And also, like, why? Because they just do everything we do but better. Like, they're more efficient, at least, you know. I'm not gonna be fooled for a fucking second to think by the nation that is funding the absolute decimation of like Palestine, Sudan, and Congo, even though we're not the main ones in charge of Sudan, and but it's our fucking best buddies, the UAE and Germany. does not give a fuck about the rights of people in China. So you can't convince me of that. You can't convince me that any intervention that the US does is for, in good faith at all. Every one of them is like a front to try to just install more fascists and extract more labor and put in an imperial core there, like extend the imperial core outward. We need a fucking proxy base. That's why we need Israel. We need and also the doomsday cult aspect of Israel and Zionism. That is like a whole other can of worms, but I don't know. So anyway, that's my thoughts. I hope maybe that'll make you feel a little bit better about Trump winning. Yeah.